In this video, we will see what are the constructors and how they work inside the Dart programming language and how they work inside the class. So basically, constructors is a different type of functions which is created with the same names as its class name. So if my class name is employee, then constructor name would be employee. So basically, constructor is a functions, but the name of the function would be same as the class name. So the constructor is used to initialize an object when it is created. When we create the object of a class, then constructor is automatically called. So it is quite similar to a function, but it has no explicit return type. So what does it mean? If you remember, in last lecture we have discussed the classes. So here for example, I am creating my sample class, and my class name was in previous lecture my class name was employee. So here I was creating my class, and there are some properties like name. So I'm just creating one property and then method. So my method was work. So here it was a sample class which has one instance and the one function or method. So here when I try to access the properties and functions inside the class, then I have to create the object. So when I create the object, the constructor will automatically call. So for creating the object, I have to declare var. Var is actually a variable as used as variable, and here uh, employee is my object. So when I declare object, if I don't pass the uh, if I don't pass the constructor, then then compiler will automatically create an default constructor. So when I create the object, and then we basically create the after creating the object, we basically create the constructor which is a default constructor, and this constructor is basically is used to create the object of the class. So when this constructor is passed here, then it means that it is using to create the object. So after creation of the object, we can access the elements and the properties inside the class. So this means that the generative constructor is the most general form of the constructor, which is used to create a new instance of a class, and it is option to declare within the class. All classes have their own constructor, but if you do not declare or forget, then the Dart compiler will create a default constructor. So basically this is the default constructor which a Dart compiler is creating if I do not declare it. So if we declare on constructor, then default constructor will be ignored. So here you can see that this is the constructor, and after constructors we basically this is a constructor which is used to create the object. So there are total three types of constructors. One is default constructor, which is automatically generate when if we do not call it, and the second one is parameterized constructor, and the third one is named constructor. So parameterized constructor is similar to the function which we pass the parameters, and default constructor named constructor is also similar to the parameterized constructor, but there are some rules which we have to follow. So let's see here how parameterized constructor and named constructor would see. So I'm going to create a sample. I'm going to create the sample syntax of parameterized constructor and named constructor. So for example, if I have a class named as employee, employee, the name of the class would be should be start from capital letter. So this is my class basically, and here is basically I'm creating just constructor, I'm not creating a class. So that's why I'm just creating my class name, my constructor name. So this is my constructor, and you here can see that this is my constructor, and inside the parenthesis of constructor, I have to pass the parameters. So parameters can be any kind of. It can be a name of class, or it can be age, or it can be desi. So this type of constructor in which we are passing parameters are named as parameterized constructors. And then we have a named constructor. So named constructor is similar to the uh, parameterized constructor, but their syntax is quite similar, but we have to follow some rules and regulations for accessing the parameters. So for example, if I have a named constructor, then I have to follow some things. So after after declaring the parameters, I have basically used to add parenthesis inside the constructor. So basically this is the syntax of named constructor, and when I access the parameters inside the main class, then I have to follow the order of the parameters which I have passed here. So for example, if I accessed in my class in this way, so if I accessed my constructor inside the main function, then I must have to follow the and then I must have to follow the basically the order of the parameters which I have passed here. I can so if I declare the name as a first parameter, then I must have to declare the data of named parameter. Then I have to declare the data for each parameter. Then I have to declare the basic of parameter. So here I have to follow the exactly order which I am creating here. I cannot create I cannot create I actually I cannot pass the data without the order. So here you can see that the first parameter is named, so I cannot pass the data for age here. So that's why it's if I try to pass the data of age at the position of name, then the compiler would create an error. So this is what I wanted to say, that we have to follow this thing. So this is the syntax of the named constructor and the parameterized constructor. So default constructor is same as we have discussed in the last class.